Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. This game will be against Runinja. Or if you say it, are you ninja? There are two ways of pronouncing it, or there are multiple ways of pronouncing it. Still don't know the right way, but let's get into the game. So this was a French defense after e4, e6, d4, d5, e5, c5. So this is what is called the advanced French, and you might think I know a lot about the French, but I don't, right? So I play this just really for experimentation. I just play based on what I see from other people and what they play, right? So the fact is, I have no idea how to play this. However, why do I know the move orders and whatever of all these openings? It's because people have played this against me, right? At one time in my chess career, I played this setup as white against the French defense. So I kind of saw what my opponents did, and I'm mirroring them. I'm just using what they played against me to essentially try it out. So after knight c6, knight f3, knight g7. Now, the main move here, some people consider the move queen b6. I'm not sure if people play f6 here. I think this is a bad move, but essentially queen b6 is a move. There are probably other moves. Knight g7 is a move. So I play knight g7. Why do you think? So if you think about it, obviously you don't want to block this bishop, right? But what is the purpose of this bishop right now in long term? So number one, it's defending this pawn. That's the first priority. Number two, ideally you want it to be here, right? So one of the ideas in the French is to break this center. Now, how do you do that? You play the move f6 eventually, and you want to break this. So essentially, this will be the bad French bishop because these pawns are going to remain in their place, but essentially this guy will get free because his job is to break the wall. So after knight g7, bishop b5, I play the move a6, bishop takes c6, knight takes, bishop e3, once again threatening to take c5. I play queen c7, so after d takes e5, knight takes e5, and I've essentially broken the wall. So white doesn't want to do that. Knight bd2, b6, and now I start to bring my bishop out this way, maybe create some queenside expansion. I'm not sure yet. So after a3, our opponent, Runinja, says, okay, I might play b4, I might restrict your growth on the queen side. So what do? I don't care. I'm sort of, I'm like, I have the option to play f6 one day and open it up. But I also have the option to play a5, a4, b5, b4, and open that up one day. So I just slowly develop. After rook c1, I play f6. And at this point, you can see that the computer is sort of like, no, 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 this is a bad move. And yeah, it could be considered a bad move because after e takes f6, my intention was bishop takes f6, but there's d takes c5, right? So at this point, I would have to then consider rook takes f6. I mean, that's not ideal, but after bishop g5, rook g6, bishop takes, queen takes, it would be a weird position for me to play because As I've explained to you before, this French bishop is usually the bad bishop because it has to take multiple moves to come out, right? Or, of course, you get in this push of e5. But white is going to play rook e1 most certainly here and place a knight on e5, and this guy's going to look real clumsy. But in the French, the goal is to really, one day break through in the center. So let's move back. This wasn't played in the game, but ultimately, I believe I forgot to take into account that after bishop takes, our pawn would be taken on c5. So it was a slight bad move by me. So after bishop f4, I was obviously relieved, right? So I played f takes e5, but in fact, this is a bad move as well. Why? Like, like you're such a good player, but you're criticizing your own moves, right? Yeah. So sometimes chess players are a little bit harsh on themselves on where to improve and such. But this is a fact, right? So what I did was I didn't break the wall here. What I did was I invited another one of white's pieces to enter the wall. And you notice that this wall is not going to be broken again. So if I play the move bishop d6, the knight comes in, reinforces the wall, not much is going to happen. So essentially I played bishop d7, thinking the wall wasn't going to be broken. And after knight df3, played the move bishop e8. Why? So at this point, there are two options for the bishop, two diagonals, one for pinning the knight and the queen, one for attacking the rook. So I want to keep my options open. I put my bishop back. After queen e2, you can see that my e6 pawn is weak, and that is usually a very common occurrence in the French, right? You're going to get this set up, but this pawn is going to be a little bit weak just for that, especially the fact that you have two bishops. So after bishop h5, put some pressure, our opponent plays g4. And I considered this move briefly, but I thought about it and I thought as if this move, I would say, weakened the king's defense more than it was effective in moving the bishop. Because for me, I kind of felt like here, this bishop doesn't exactly do much, right? You can play queen e3 and continue the blockade of the wall. But our opponent was a little bit worried, went with g4. I was completely fine with it, backed up. And after king h1, I saw this. I was actually very happy that I saw this because otherwise I felt like I was going to have to grind for a while, right? Because I knew that I didn't do a very effective job in trying to break down the wall. So I played bishop b5. Obviously, this is a skewer on the queen and the rook, and so the most obvious move is the move c4, except this loses. So, what's the right move? Knight d3. Knight d3, hard move to spot because queen is going to threaten e6, but you also have to keep in mind that these knights are very vulnerable. So, for example, black could play king h8, right? And after queen takes e6, rook or bishop could take any of these knights. So then something like queen e3 could happen. Still can't take that. So I'm going to play bishop d6, and you can see that this pawn on g4 is isolated. It's alone. It's not doing much, and frankly, it's allowed me to get into these squares. So that's why I feel like g4 is a little bit overboard. It's a strategical, how do I say? It's like a strategical inaccuracy if I were harsh to say it, but it's also a very instinctive move. It would be a move that I would really consider in blitz, but if I take 15 minutes to think about the move g4, I would eventually weigh the pros and cons and eventually say no to it. So after the move c4, I played d takes c4, knight takes c4, and now actually I sort of, you know, I had, I had this move rook takes f3 at the very start. The reason why at the very start of d takes f4, I was already looking that my bishop was going to open this diagonal up. But somehow I did not play the move rook takes f3. I don't know why, but here's the idea. Rook takes f3, queen takes f3, bishop c6, the queen is pinned, right? That's the goal. Somehow I didn't see it. I played queen b7 instead. Almost equally as great, but here, after king g2, rook takes f3, queen takes e6, play the move king h8, keeping the battery alive. After d5, rook f6, queen e5, and here I sort of solidify my advantage up a bishop. After queen e4, rook f4, queen d3, bam, trade, rook f8, queen e4, h6, sort of give myself some cushion, prevent back rank mate, rook e1, rook f4, looking to attack that isolated g4 pawn, queen e6, queen c7, queen e8, and you can sort of notice that there's a bit of tension around my king, right? So there is potential for white to create some perpetual or whatever toward my king. So obviously I'm a little bit shaken, but I'm not deterred by it. So after king h3, rook g5, I take advantage of this king's positioning. So I would love to get a queen to the f file and to h5. That's not doable right now because this queen that's guarding the king side. So after queen c6, this is what I wanted to see. Queen f7, bring the queen over. Then our Runinja went for a ritual sacrifice. Rook takes h6, g takes h6, queen takes d6, queen h5 is coming, and my condolences. So, what goes on? What was the main factor in white losing this game? Well, really, I gotta say a few things. It wasn't like I completely dominated this game. Let's look at f6, right? This was a moment where white could have capitalized. E takes, rook takes, and after something like bishop g5, right, rook g6, bam, bam, and sort of taken advantage of this weak pawn after rook e1. So this was a moment that white could have seized the initiative. But after bishop f4, once again, I made the mistake of allowing white to continue building this wall, right? And what I should have done is played the move f5. By playing f5, now I have an even more clear path of going this way, maybe pushing h6, g5, and in this case I'd feel more comfortable. But I think I was thinking about c4 here. But c4 is countered by rook d8 and sort of exerting the pressure on this file. I don't know why I was wondering about that. That could have been a concern. But instead I allowed the wall to continue. And at this point, I felt like g4 was one of those small things that led to the strategic downfall that gave me the initiative I was looking for on this diagonal. And ultimately, with the simplification, that's how I eventually won, and queen c6 just helped me out. So, thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon.